We've got some Jaguars injury news to break down for you here on today's show, as there's a lot of injury news that came out of the 15th training camp practice for the Jacksonville Jaguars, including one position that I wanted to dive into further here on today's show. Plus, I wanted to go back and discuss some preseason week one winners and losers over the weekend in which the Jaguars defeated the New Orleans Saints 24-20. This is Jags Now, presented by our wonderful friends over at PrizePicks. Make sure you use code HMA to get potentially $150 in bonus lineups if you win that first $5 lineup. Just use code HMA. All right, let's get right into today's show. We'll start off with Mullens St. Cyr, who does a great job covering the Jaguars there with some boots on the ground. He had this update in terms of just everything he saw from Jaguars training camp in terms of the initial players on the practice field. He had this to say. Patrick Mekari is reportedly, the report is accurate. No determination has been made about IR, which we'll talk about more here in just a second. We broke down here on the channel. LaQuint Allen is dealing with a soft tissue issue and will miss the rest of training camp. Parker Washington is day-to-day, but will return next week. And Wyatt Milam is day-to-day, but will return next week as well. Yeah, it's just one of those things that people saw the initial Parker Washington and Wyatt Milam injuries, and they're like, oh no, this could be the end, basically. And they're day-to-day. They won't play, if I had to guess, during the Jaguars' next preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, but they should be back into the swing of things next week. Parker Washington with like an undisclosed injury, and Wyatt Milam's got something minor as well. But Patrick Mekari, who we broke down on the channel yesterday, I kind of want to do a little bit of a further deep dive into his situation, because he is expected to miss some time after having a back procedure. The Jaguars, we'll get to in here in just a second, have not placed him on IR, but this is kind of a brutal blow because he was expected to be the Jaguars' starting right guard for the beginning of the 2026 NFL season, with guys like Wyatt Milam and Emmanuel Pregnon kind of pushing him. And look, did he have the greatest 2025 season? No. You see the PFF grades on your screen. He was, average to below average in a lot of areas, including 9 penalties, which you just never love to see. And again, on that important note, the Jaguars still haven't decided if they will place him on IR, which could be, a big turning point for this Jaguars team that's dealing with so many injuries on the offensive line. I mean, potentially looking at him not starting week one along with Cole Van Landen. I mean, that's 2 starters from last year's team on the offensive line that you could be without going into the season. And you look at the Jags' first 4 games. You've got at home versus the Cleveland Browns in week 1. You've got at the Denver Broncos in week 2, at home versus New England Patriots in week 3, and then at the Cincinnati Bengals at week 4. And there's some notable names, right? Like Mason Graham, Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, I was thinking of the other Patriots defensive tackle, Dexter Lawrence, who the Cincinnati Bengals traded from the New York Giants. So a lot of guys on the interior that could potentially wreck your plans on the offensive line, and there's going to be some shuffling, right? Where Anton Harrison, I think it's pretty much established at this point. He's making the switch over to left tackle to at least start off the year and maybe play the entirety of the 2026 NFL season, where he hasn't played since he became an NFL player. He's played on the right side exclusively. And if I had to guess, this is probably what the offensive line looks like. Obviously, Cole Van Landen could potentially look to, get some snaps there at right tackle. But one kind of interesting note that I thought was interesting, because Walker Little did return to practice yesterday. This is what the Jaguars rolled out as one of their offensive line combinations here on day 15 of training camp. Anton Harrison at left tackle. They've actually inserted Emmanuel Pregnon, who I thought they were going to insert a right guard. They move him to left guard, which is the position he played at college at Oregon, with Robert Hainsey at center. Ezra Cleveland then moving to right guard with Walker Little at right tackle. And look, there seems to be a lot of momentum that Emmanuel Pregnon could start week 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, whether that is at left guard, whether that is at right guard. But the Jaguars are clearly experimenting with a bunch of different options in terms of where they're going to plug things in on their offensive line. They've looked at Jonah Monheim at potentially at right guard. They've looked at, obviously, Wyatt Milam. They've looked at Emmanuel Pregnon, even Walker Little at right guard. So they've tried out a lot of different combinations. But if I had to guess, Emmanuel Pregnon could join this group with moving Ezra Cleveland to the right guard spot to start off the season for Jacksonville. And I'm not necessarily hating on the move. I think Emmanuel Pregnon was one of the more highly touted offensive guard prospects in this past draft class. If the Jaguars are forced to get him in, it could be detrimental, or it could be really good for their season moving forward. Who will start for the Jaguars at right guard this upcoming Friday against the Carolina Panthers? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'm thinking it's going to be Ezra Cleveland based on just all the kind of training camp reports we've gotten so far, but you guys let me know down below in the comments section. We'll get into the rest of today's show here in just a moment, but we would not be able to do today's show without our sponsor, PrizePicks. Today's show is sponsored by PrizePicks, America's #1 sports picks app. And guys, I love using PrizePicks. Baseball's in full swing. football is right around the corner, at least in terms of the regular season. So you guys want to make sure you're locked in with our friends over at Prize Picks. You can choose from numerous stat projections on Prize Picks, including passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, points, rebounds, and assists. And it's available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Here's a Taco Tuesday lineup, which Prize Picks sometimes gives out little discount stat projections themed around Taco Tuesday. I've got the more on Caitlin Clark's 19.5 points, more on Kelsey Mitchell's 18.5 points. That is the taco for today. And then Angel Reese, I've got more on the rebounds. I feel like it's a pretty safe lock at 10.5 rebounds. Guys, we got a new user offer alert. Play your first $5 lineup, get $150 in bonus lineups. If you win, just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right. Just PrizePicks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join in. Lock in and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win that first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, code HMA. Download the app now. So the Jaguars were victorious in their first preseason Week 1 game against the New Orleans Saints, in which honestly was a really epic, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, second half comeback in which it came down to the wire. Like the Saints had a chance to win it at the end, but ultimately fell short. And the Jaguars were able to get a win on the road in New Orleans, which, look, I'm not going to try to blow out proportion. It is preseason, right? But there were some takeaways and I think some noteworthy storylines that I wanted to discuss in terms of some winners and losers as guys continue to battle for roster spots heading in to the 2026 NFL season. But we did get this announcement here yesterday that I wanted to bring to y'all's attention that I'm really excited about. That's the goal right now, is to look to potentially playing him a little Friday night. And that was Coach Liam Cohen talking about the starters suiting up against the Carolina Panthers. I'm excited to see it, right? Even if it's a preseason game where, stats don't matter, the games don't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things. I'm excited to see Trevor Lawrence, Liam Cohen, Bashal Toon, all the boys play on TV in front of our television screens. And if you're excited to see the starters play against the Carolina Panthers, hit that like button as we are getting closer and closer to the Jaguars taking the field for real in the regular season. I just can't believe that we're going to see Trevor Lawrence on Friday. Let's get into the winners and losers now. Here against the New Orleans Saints. And my first one is a guy we kind of already talked about, right? In Emmanuel Pregnon, who he was kind of the most notable offensive lineman that was going to get snaps against the New Orleans Saints. And rightfully so, everyone's eyes were on him. And again, I understand PFF's not everything, but he graded out really well against the New Orleans Saints. He had 74 overall grade, 76.5 pass blocking grade, 70 run blocking grade on 32 snaps. And look, to me, Pregnon was easily the best offensive lineman on Saturday for Jacksonville. Now, caveat, there were a couple plays out there in which the Saints kind of threw some different stunts and different looks at him that Emmanuel Pregnon did not handle the best. And again, he's a rookie. He's not supposed to handle everything, especially with NFL bodies, NFL strength, and all that. But he easily, to me, was the best offensive lineman in the country. And if the Jaguars feel that, with all their injuries on the offensive line with Patrick Mekari, Cole Van Lanen, that he is their best option moving forward, I have no problem inserting him into the starting lineup. And I really think he could be beneficial for this Jaguars team in 2026, where originally it could have been thought that he was more of a 2027 option. So good to see Pregnon balling out in the preseason. Next up, Yasir Abdullah, the linebacker who, I'm going to be honest, the Jaguars have had so much turmoil at the linebacker position. We haven't talked about Yasir Abdullah all that often here on the channel, but he's had quietly a really good camp. Like, he's made splash plays here and there. And, obviously throughout the course of training camp, when you're competing for depth linebacker positions, you're not necessarily always going to get highlighted in terms of like being the biggest winner from practices and whatnot. However, I think on the defensive side of the football on Saturday, he was easily the best Jaguars player on the field. He had 2 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack, 1 quarterback hit that resulted in a forced fumble that was recovered by B.J. Green. And look, I mean, the Jaguars have had some kind of, let's just call it a turnover, right, with the linebacker position, with injuries to Jack Kaiser, who's slowly kind of making his way back, getting injured the first day of training camp. You obviously suffered injuries to Jay Bartlett, who the Jaguars brought in after the Jack Kaiser injury. And then Parker Hughes, your 7th-round rookie, you're also dealing with injuries. Yasir Abdullah, there's a chance he could make this roster as a depth linebacker, just given kind of the fact that he survived the injury kind of plague the Jaguars have had the linebacker position. So the fact that he balled out and took advantage of an opportunity to show what the Jaguars what he could do, I think it's a really good sign for Jacksonville moving forward and this defense if he can prove his worth as a depth linebacker. Moving into the final winner now, and it is Jamari Taylor, the running back formerly of the Virginia Cavaliers. Spent some time with Jacksonville as a UDFA signing earlier this offseason, and I thought he's had some moments. I was really kind of hoping he would step up and be this team's RB4. Now, will the Jaguars even keep 4 running backs? I'm not necessarily sure. The the Jaguars have kind of really had a good contingent at the running back position, despite not having maybe the most proven talent at the top. I think they've got a good, solid amount of depth, right? Bashal Tootin, Chris Rodriguez, Quinn Allen, obviously, and Amir Abdullah has really kind of emerged as a reliable veteran option for this team. But you saw the stats on screen. Like, given the opportunity and given the workload, Jamari Taylor was really somebody that I felt like needed to have a good game to show his stuff against the New Orleans Saints, and he did that, right? Like, that's all you can ask you to do is, like, when given the opportunity, perform. And that's what Jamari Taylor did, and I would expect him to really push Amir Abdullah for that final running back spot, potentially on the Jaguars roster. He had a really good day for Jacksonville at the running back position. We will get into more of today's show here in just a moment, but we would not be able to do today's show without our friends over at SeatGeek. Today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. And guys, I love our friends over at the SeatGeek app. As today's show is made possible by SeatGeek, use code CHAT10 to get 10% off your next set of tickets. MLB is in full swing, and you can get tickets to all different types of sporting events on SeatGeek. The NFL schedule is officially released, and SeatGeek is the best place to go if you want tickets to a Jaguars game this year. Now, personally, guys, I'll be talking Jaguars here at our studios here in Dallas, Texas, but whether you're in Duval County, whether you're across the United States, even if you're international, right? The Jaguars play 2 games overseas in London. You can catch Jaguars games with our friends over at SeatGeek as they take on both the Eagles and Texans overseas in London. But to kick off Jacksonville's season, the Jaguars take on the Browns at home, and you can get tickets with SeatGeek for as low as $179, give or take. Those numbers can fluctuate a little bit. Whether it's a ball game, concert, or any other event, SeatGeek is the place to go as they have your back when purchasing tickets. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots as they mean good, red dots mean bad. Use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off of any tickets with promo code CHAT10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring today's show. All right, we talked about the winners. Now we got to get into the losers part of it. The losers, at least the main loser for me from Jacksonville's side of things, was pretty much every backup quarterback that suited up for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know Joey Aguilar basically got in towards the end of the game and completed 1 pass, but the main concern I have right here is with your backup quarterback number 2 and your backup quarterback number 3, a.k.a. Nick Mullens and Carter Bradley. Nick Mullens, I'm not sure if you know this, that 17.9 quarterback rating, I forget what the actual number is, Producer Coop, but whenever you spike the football, I'm not even sure what your quarterback rating is, it's lower than that. Like, if you literally spiked the football at every single play, you would have a higher quarterback rating than Nick Mullens did against the New Orleans Saints. Carter Bradley wasn't much better. He did execute the offense at a higher level, but am I going to really trust the, backup quarterback duties to a guy in Carter Bradley who has had some okay moments, but I'm not at all confident in the Jaguars' backup quarterback situation. Like, Trevor Lawrence, knock on wood that, obviously he stays healthy and he's able to contribute for the entirety of the 2026 NFL season, but heaven forbid if the Jaguars need any backup quarterback, like, I get Nick Mullens has been there, he understands the system and everything. Just throughout the offseason, it's been reported multiple times that they've all struggled at different points, and when they got into action against the New Orleans Saints, I mean, for crying, Zach Wilson looked better on Saturday versus the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. So if I'm the Jaguars, I'm really considering potentially looking to upgrade the backup quarterback situation. That could be a potential future video idea, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. Another Jaguars loser, and I don't necessarily love calling on players whenever they have these kind of preseason performances, because, again, it's tough out here. And look, Corey Ballantyne's a guy who's been around this league for a long time, has some special teams versatility. He did not have a great outing against the New Orleans Saints. He had a 29 PFF coverage grade, which, again, it's not everything, but according to their tracking stats, he gave up 4 receptions on 6 targets, including multiple big plays to Zach Wilson. He was targeting him a lot. And when you think about this Jaguars cornerback room, obviously you have the top 4, in my opinion, that are going to make this roster pretty much no matter what. In Travis Hunter, Monteric Brown, Jordan Lewis, and Jarian Jones. All 4 of those guys are locks. Then you've got guys like Jabbar Muhammad, Christian Braswell, and Devon Marshall, who actually had a really good game himself. Christian Braswell's working himself from injury. Jabbar Muhammad. Like, there's a world where the Jaguars keep 5 or 6 corners. If I'm being honest, all 3 of those names that I just mentioned, I would take over Ballantyne at this point. And I get that he provides a certain veteran presence that I think, this defensive coaching staff would value, but you've got to be able to play the cornerback position at some capable value if you want to get snaps in this league. And if he continues to have those performances throughout preseason, it's not going to be a good look for him, and the Jaguars will look elsewhere at the quarterback spot. Finally, the last loser, and this one was just more or less just kind of a disappointing unit for Heath Farwell's unit on special teams, more specifically the kick coverage unit, right? The Jaguars kick coverage unit allowed both an 86-yard run in which Jalen Husky was actually the one who was improperly positioned on the play, and then he had to make the hawk tackle at the end to save a touchdown, but the Saints ended up scoring on the drive anyway, and also another 34-yard return. Like, it's not like they're a big loser in this, but when you're really trying to go out in preseason and execute on special teams, that's the key word, right? You just want to execute. You're not trying to have anything flashy. Like, if you get anything positive, right, like a kickoff return, punt return, cause a turnover, whatever the case may be, that's a positive. But really in special teams, especially in preseason, just execute the game plan. Like, make sure your coverage is tight. Make sure you're able to, rally to the football and make sure you're not allow a couple of big games. Unfortunately for the Jaguars on special teams, that was not the case, so I have them as my final loser. That'll conclude this episode of Jags Now, presented by our wonderful friends at PrizePicks. Thank you so much for tuning to the end of this video. And guys, we're going to be back with another video. We got joint practice between the Jaguars and Panthers here tomorrow, so we will have a reaction video here on the channel. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and until next time, guys, peace out.